Everyone, my name is Ravi. I'm the co-founder CEO of Zeeve. And today on Web3 Voice, we have a very exciting guest, Srinivasan from Shardeum, which is world's first auto-scaling blockchain. And so Srinivasan, we welcome you and would love to know about your Web3 journey, a bit of your introduction, as well as how your Web3 journey has been so far. And then, we'll delve deeper into what you are building at Shardeum.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, and thank you, Z, for this opportunity. So my name is Srinivasan. Easier to just call me Srini. I'm the CTO at Shardeum. I've been here for a little less than a year. Before I came to Shardeum, I've been in this Web3 space for almost a decade now. And I was fascinated by blockchain when I first saw it as part of a company that we were trying to sell. And then once I started diving into it, it really fascinated me. So I built my first NFT marketplace back in 2017. There wasn't even an ERC 721 standard then. So, I ended up writing a really verbose smart contract. But it was an interesting experiment. And, it did well. It was a marketing experiment more than anything else. But once I did that, I was hooked. And then, I've had a serendipitous journey through various blockchain companies, trying to evangelize the usage of blockchain for the right reasons. Most recently I was at DraftKings. I set up their whole blockchain infrastructure for one of their one of the products that, they were very successful products there. We're trying to use blockchain for, and it was built completely on Polygon. And it was again, a very good usage of the blockchain technology. After that, I worked for a company called Silks, where we were trying to sell NFTs of racehorses. And interestingly enough, when we launched the product, it was all on Ethereum. And when we launched the product, we were selling racehorses for about $1,200, and the gas fee for that was almost $200. And I thought this was insane. and that's when I came across Shardeum, where, we had this promise of solving the trilemma and yet keeping the gas price low, having it be decentralized fully. It sounded like an amazing product to get involved with. So that's how I ended up in Shardeum, and I'm very happy I did.
No, I think that's quite a journey, and I think it's a very compelling story, how you became part of Shardeum. Because as we know, I was part of the DeFi and NFT boom, where, the gas fee rocketed massively, especially whenever a new NFT project used to be launched.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even broke Ethereum. It was so massive, congestion and gas fee and, a lot of challenges. So I think time and again, the whole challenge of trilemma has been talked about. That, in blockchain, if you try to have decentralization, which Ethereum has focused on, security and decentralization, then in any case, based on the underlying protocols, scalability becomes a challenge, and vice versa. And sharding has been one of the solutions that has been there. But I believe nobody actually took that concept and built a innovative chain around that. And so, when you say auto scaling, recently you launched your Mainnet as well. So what makes Shardeum fundamentally different layer one as compared to other chains? And a bit about sharding and how your approach to scalability and decentralization and solving the trilemma.
Yeah. Actually, it's very interesting, right? So the various other networks have tried sharding in different ways. Even Ethereum has done sharding, in some ways. But I don't believe anybody has really done dynamic state sharding the way Shardeum does. So and you're right. We just launched Mainnet about 2 months ago, and and today actually is a very interesting day because today we launched a testnet with support for smart contracts. I hope everybody on your site actually goes to Shardeum and checks out our playground where we have different dApps built around it. But to answer your question, the I want to walk you through a sort of a visual mind map, a thought experiment, if you will, because it makes it easier. It's not 100% accurate, but it's a good way to visualize how Shardium does design works. So if you think of a EVM blockchain as sort of like a spreadsheet, right? Where every row is a block, and every column in that row is a transaction in that block, let's say. And so, so the in a traditional EVM blockchain, the way it works is that the spreadsheet is readable by everybody, but we don't want everybody to be able to write to it at the same time. So it's a single threaded write. And so most blockchains, they differ primarily in how they allow somebody to write that row in that spreadsheet. And so if you think of it that way, so it's publicly readable, but the writing is single threaded, and all these consensus algorithms that people have is basically a way of selecting who gets to write that block. And so you have typically in an EVM network, it's written out. You can write a entire row. You have to write an entire row at a time, and so you basically know how each transaction is. How the transaction is sequenced within that block. So you know which column, in what order the columns are in that row, and then you write out that entire row. And when you get the opportunity to write that row, then you are rewarded in whatever that crypto, in the ETH or whatever that native currency is, for the privilege of writing that row. Now, what happens is in a typical EVM non-sharded blockchain, imagine that this spreadsheet will have billions of rows, and every node will need to keep a copy of that, and so it becomes very unwieldy when you grow past a certain stage, because keeping all that state and replicating it everywhere becomes a nightmare, and it doesn't scale, and that's one of the reasons why it doesn't scale well. Now, so imagine if you could take the same spreadsheet and somehow split up the data into tabs like you have in Google Docs. So you would have a different tab for a different subset of data. So think of it like a phone book, so where you have all names starting with A in one section, B in one section, so on and so forth. So you have like a phone book with, say, 26 sections. Similarly, you can have multiple tabs where the data is broken up in some format, let's say using some algorithm, and the data for the in each tab, it has its own, the whole data, the spreadsheet is broken up into multiple tabs where each tab has a subset of the data. So that is sharding. So you could, so once you do that, you have different nodes responsible for just managing that smaller tab or smaller subset of data. Now, it has its own challenges, because now when you have, one node which is managing, say, tabs 1, 2, and 3, and there's another node that's managing tabs 83, 86, and 90, they don't have overlapping data. They have to communicate with each other to figure out, when they need it. If there's a transaction that flows between these two, then they have to sort of communicate and figure out how to do things. So it adds a communication overhead on it, but each node needs to know a much smaller subset, so they can be smaller, and they can the processing that's required to save process is a much smaller subset. So it makes it easier for anybody to spin up a much smaller node that only looks at a subset of the data. But Shardium goes one step further. Now, we don't have like a constant set of tabs. So let's say you only had 1 million records, and maybe you only need 10 tabs to break it up. Now, if that becomes 1 billion records, now that the number of tabs could become 1,000 tabs. And what Shardeum does is we can scale automatically based on how much data needs to be sharded or broken up into tabs. And we can also shrink it dynamically if that number becomes smaller. So that's dynamic state sharding. I don't think anybody else has done this quite this way. So that's a differentiation. Now, how does it matter how does it matter in the trilemma focus? Because the amount of data that each node needs to process, the footprint of a node that does this, a validator node, can be really small. And so you don't need terabytes of storage, for instance. You don't need a CPU with, you don't need a huge footprint. You can take a much smaller footprint, like what you guys have at Zeeve. It makes it easy, or people can go to something like Zeeve, click one button, launch a small node that costs them much less, and you are up and you can be a validator node. And that's what makes it really powerful. The whole thing that drives Shardeum is decentralization. We want the community to participate in everything that we do. So we want people to run their own nodes and be part of the network, secure the network. When you have such a diverse, and if you look at our test nets that we had people running nodes from literally all over the globe. And that's what makes decentralization, so fundamental and core to how we do things at Shardeum. We are an open source project. Everything that we develop is open source. Anybody can see what we're doing. And so, we want to keep it open, and we like it that way. We want it to be a participatory network where people spin up simple, small, inexpensive nodes that can secure the network. And that's where you get decentralization. And because of that, you get security. And because of the way we do dynamic state sharding, you also get scaling, all rolled into, one network.
Very, very interesting design. And you have simplified it very well. So just as a follow-up, so that means, on one hand, as different validators are storing only part of the data. So that means a single node will not be blown to a high storage requirements in future. And the scalability is given by adding more and more validators in the network. And so by adding more validators in the network, you're solving the scalability also. But at the same time, since, these are all external validators across the globe, that means, it leads to higher decentralization as well at the same time.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Yep.
Got it.
And actually, there's one more aspect of this, which I briefly touched upon, but if you give me 30 seconds, I can elaborate on that.
You would love to hear that.
Like I said, right, in a typical EVM network, people are allowed to, you have to write a block at a time. But what happens is that now you have to, writing a block at a time has its advantage because you're now rolling up a bunch of transactions into one block and you're writing it out as a block. So you essentially get to write a row with multiple columns in it. But Shardeum does not operate on blocks. It's not our native construct. We settle, the consensus happens at a transaction level. So what that means is that, we are allowed to change in Shardeum. You can change a single cell within that row. So, no MEV attacks. There is not, and the settlement is, is very, very fast. And it's, and so that also contributes to the scalability of the product. So now you're not waiting for a whole block. And, because we're not submitting a set of, n transactions within a block. So somebody cannot reorder the sequence of how the transactions happen in the block. So you can't leverage. So it contributes to security because you can't rearrange the blocks and rearrange the transactions in the block. It also contributes to scalability because now you can change a single cell within that row. So all of that contributes to both scalability and also, so the other thing is that our consensus mechanism works in a way so that the node that's responsible for, say, tab number 3, 4, and 7 is selected at random. at the beginning of each cycle. Our cycle is 60 seconds. At the end of every minute, the algorithm picks a new set of people who can consensus on that on each transaction. So because of this dynamic nature, and because we change this, and nobody knows, even the node that's responsible. First of all, we don't know which node is going to be get picked, and that node doesn't know which tab it's responsible for. So it makes it very secure. So that's how we address the trilemma. So I just want to make sure that your audience understands how this technology works.
Absolutely. I think this is, again, very, very interesting, especially how the transactions are processed in a certain order as they are received. And so that solves the front running or MEV problems, that
Exactly.
just so the chains face today. So I think for DeFi, all the builders who are building into DeFi, I think they should try Shardeum and because this is one of the pressing challenges, especially in the DeFi ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And Srini also mentioned that there's no unpredictable gas fee. So can you just briefly touch upon what it means, how the gas fee will always remain low and stable on
Yeah.
Shardium?
So because we have dynamic state sharding, we can have a much tighter control on the gas fee, because the processing that's required for transactions is much lower. And so the classic problem that I mentioned that we had earlier with Ethereum, where somebody launches a meme coin and now the network is completely bogged down because they can dynamically increase the number of they can't just scale up to meet that demand, but Shardium can. And because we can scale up you know automatically and transparently, we can still keep the gas fee low. And because there's no block that's being processed, we know the cost of consensus for a transaction, and that doesn't vary much across. So definitely for coin transfers, it's a very, very, very small fixed fee. Now, once we have smart contracts running, there will be some variability, because smart contracts, there are different opcodes that are priced differently. So for smart contracts, the it's more of a variable gas fee, but it's still going to be very, very small and still very predictable compared to any other AVM out there.
Got it. No, I think it will be a boon for DeFi, gaming, micropayments in the case of enterprises. I think lower gas fee always translates to high economic value for any app which is building on Shardium.
Yep, 100%.
So I think
Think about this concept, right? Pretty much anybody who's running anything on any network should seriously look at Shardium.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. So now, because I think validators play a massive or a very important role in scaling Shardia, right? And we at Zeeve, as a node provider, we have partnered with Shardium to launch one-click, no-code, no non-custodial kind of launch of validator nodes at a very reasonable price. So from your perspective, from Shardium's perspective, how does this partnership help lower technical barriers and accelerate the onboarding of validators?
Yeah, see, one of the biggest challenges for people wanting to run a validator node, say if you want to run a validator node in Ethereum, it is really hard. You have to be very tech savvy. You need to know a lot of things. It's like the process of, like everything else in Web3, it's a really daunting process, and most people don't even bother doing it because it's just easier for them to go to a pool. But then you're not really helping secure the network. So when somebody like Zeeve partners with Shardium and you provide a simple one-click solution that just says, hey, run your credit card here, click here, and you're up and running. That is a very powerful incentive for somebody to go in and say, okay, here, I can help secure this network and also earn rewards at the same time. So it's like, and I'm making it more secure. My funds are secure. Everybody else's funds are secure. It makes it kind of ticks all the boxes. So thank you for the for your partnership.
No, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And I think one thing that we have seen, we as a validator as a service, we provide validators for quite a few blockchains. But in most of the cases, we had to design the staking dashboard. One of the best thing we liked about Shardeum was that you already have a staking dashboard that we have connected with the one-click deployment. And I think it's making it very, very easy, combining the one-click deployment and management of Zeeve plus the staking dashboard, which is part of the validator stack. I think makes it very, very easy for anyone who wants to launch as well as stake and unstake and manage their nodes from an interface. So I think collectively it makes it very, very easy. So are you also seeing traction among the enterprises to run Shardium nodes? Or right now it's more of individuals and organized validators who are running the nodes?
No, I think we are seeing interest from other enterprises who want to run nodes, and I obviously am not the right person to. I don't really have much visibility into that. You need to talk to our to our BD and marketing team. But yes, there is definitely interest because it makes a lot of sense, right? So you look at what you guys are providing, like Zeeve, one click, and to launch a node and be part of the Web3 ecosystem is an incredible thing. And I'm sure there's a lot more that can be done for the enterprises.
So now, a bit about traction on the chain. So you've launched your mainnet. You're already, and as you just mentioned that you have launched the testnet with smart contract capabilities so people can deploy their projects. So can you talk about a bit of the early traction that you have on Shardium, and at the same time, what the future roadmap looks like?
Yeah. So, since we launched, we have seen, it definitely seen traction. And as you know, the whole Web3 landscape is changing very rapidly, and the US is at the forefront of that. There have been several bills that have been passed recently that, pushes stable coins, pushes crypto and Web3 firmly into the perspective of the common man, at least in the US. And I think that will drive a lot of the interest. We fully anticipate a bull market in the crypto space in the upcoming months. So having said that, I think there's also, because of that, there's a renewed interest in a lot of things, meme coins, DeFi protocols, and and when the minute such a thing that market space opens up, it makes it incredibly persuasive for different companies to try their products first on Shardium, because you can scale easily, the costs are low, you can so I think it's going to create a more viable ecosystem for people to even experiment with using Web3 in their products. There are like, we have not even looked and pushed the frontiers of where we can go. Like, for instance, gaming applications, they could definitely benefit from having a low cost, dynamically scaling, decentralized chain, for instance. So I anticipate a whole host of new players in the space, some that we have not even thought of. If you had told me 3 years ago that AI is going to be as big as this, I would have probably been very skeptical. But here we are. So you never know what the future holds. But we think that this is all the things are pointing to this ecosystem growing, not shrinking. So I see great things for this in the space.
No, absolutely. I think I cannot agree more. All the use cases where you require higher throughput, you require lower gas fee, and the assurance of scalability, right?
Yep.
Makes it very compelling. Shardium can become the go-to chain for gaming, for payments, and decentralized trading, whether it be perpetuals or spot trading. Wherever we require, There are massive number of transactions happening. Higher scalability is required. At the same time, a clear control on gas fee um, is required. And as you said, Genius Act was recently passed in the US, which at least now we have a clear regulation on the stable coins, and another acts are also going to come in by the end of this year. So I think the regulatory framework is now being formed, and once US does, I'm sure a lot of other countries are going to follow, and we are going to see a lot more regulations coming in next 1 to 2 years. It will be very good for real world asset tokenizations, enterprises getting into it. And I believe, and I wanted to see your take. How do you see enterprise adoption? Whether enterprise adoption is going to be, at the front of the next bull run?
I think so. I mean, you can already see that, right? Like you mentioned real world assets and things like PayFi. There is a huge growing interest, and all of this would, people are getting a little wary of centralization in some ways. It's so decentralization is also very important, given how people are, with the global conflict happening. People don't like, there are some places, there are some use cases where decentralization is a powerful motivator, and having a network that's run by validators around the globe has its own appeal. And clearly, when it comes to payment systems, for instance, having a UPI that works globally is a powerful motivator. I totally see enterprises driving this next front of adoption.
Absolutely. I think it has been great session, great insights. So one last question before we sign off.
Sure.
So builders who are looking to build on Shardeum, what kind of support is available today? I'm sure, I see your website. There's a solid documentation. Everything is open source, and there's a huge community already, which again can be a supportive structure. So what are your thoughts to, tell the builders if they look to build on Shardeum?
Yeah. So, one of the things as we launched this, this testnet with smart contract support, we also created a playground with, a few sample apps. I think we have about less than 20. I don't remember the exact count today, but, that's a great place for builders to come and see what kind of dApps you can build. Maybe be inspired by some of the dApps there. This, the net is filled with examples and templates for very interesting, dApps that people can build. Come try out Shardeum. We have a playground. The URL. I'm sure you guys will publish that. And there's I'm hoping to see. One of the things that we'll probably do over the next upcoming weeks is we showcase certain dApps and have people come take a look at it. So one thing that the community could do is that if you have like a fantastic app that you want to showcase, this is a great place. Come run it on Shardeum, and now you have a now you can see it can be a great discovery platform. So come showcase your dApps on our playground and see what it's a good, easy, and inexpensive way to showcase your product. So I would strongly encourage all builders to come check it out. Run your dApps on Shardeum Playground, and be part of our marketing campaigns.
Absolutely. Thanks, Srini. I think it was a very insightful, thought-provoking conversation with you, especially learning about the technology behind Shardeum, which is super, super interesting and innovative. And thanks for joining us. And we treasure our partnership with Shardeum. And I wish you all the best, taking Shardeum to the next level and becoming one of the biggest smart contract platforms we have today.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody else who joined in. Thanks, Ravi, for your partnership. Appreciate it.
With that, we are at the end of our session. Thanks everyone for joining. Keep building, keep smiling.